Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we've got a really specific set of sources for you. It's a proposal, a big one, outlining what it would cost to, well, completely rebuild a major national education system. And when I say big, the numbers are just colossal. We're talking about a recurring spending uplift of between, what, 110 pounds and 130 billion a year.
On top of what's already spent.
Exactly. And then there's another 30 to 40 billion in capital upgrades over 7 years. And the moment you see figures like that, your first reaction is to just dismiss it. It sounds
impossible.
Yeah, impossible. Unicorn economics, right?
Right.
So our mission today is pretty simple, but I think it's crucial. We're going to put this whole plan through a stress test. We're going to see if these costs are actually as wild as they sound, or if maybe they're just what the data says is needed.
That's it. We're stripping out all the rhetoric and grounding this whole conversation in two cold, hard realities. First, we're looking at the international standard. We're using benchmarks from the OECD and those consistently high-performing Nordic nations, Finland, Sweden, Norway, Denmark.
The usual suspect.
The usual suspects. And second, the domestic standard, what we already pay for a premium private education right here at home.
So the big question we're trying to answer for you is this massive spending just some luxury budget, or is it simply what it costs to take education, and I'm quoting the source here, as seriously as the most successful, productive, and equal societies in the world already do?
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start at the bottom, right? What's the current spending deficit? We need that baseline.
And for that, the most stable, sort of internationally comparable benchmark is education spending as a percentage of GDP.
Okay.
So if you look at current UK spending, it sits around 4.2% to 4.4% of GDP. That's our starting point.
Right.
Now, compare that to the average across the developed world, the OECD average, that's 5.1%.
Wait, hold on. So even before we look at the top performers, the system is already lagging the international average by almost a full percentage point of the entire economy.
That's it. We're behind before we even start,
Wow.
precisely. And that gap, it just gets wider when we look at the systems that actually deliver excellent outcomes. The ones that rank highest for student attainment, teacher retention.
Social mobility.
All of it.
Yeah.
Those nations, our Northern European peers, they consistently spend 6% or more. Finland's at 6.1%, Sweden's 6.2%, Norway is all the way up at 6.6%. The Netherlands is 5.7%.
They've made a choice. They made education their primary economic infrastructure investment.
They have.
And that, right there, that reveals the scale of the underfunding. If we compare the UK's, say, 4.2% to the successful peer average of, let's call it 6.0%, we're trailing by 1.8 percentage points of GDP.
A huge gap.
Let's translate that into actual money for you, because the percentages can be a bit abstract. If you assume an economy of around 3 trillion pounds, that deficit means the system is underfunded by a staggering 45 to 60 billion.
Every single year.
Every single year. That's not a one-off spend. That is the annual whole.
And that figure is so vital because it explains everything you're seeing in your local communities.
Yeah.
I mean, to put 50 billion in perspective, that's roughly the entire annual budget for a major government department.
Not true.
Or maybe even two. And we are missing that amount in education every year. And that decades-long deficit, it translates directly into the decay the sources describe.
The deteriorating buildings, the rising class sizes.
The teacher shortages, the collapsed recruitment pipelines, weakened SEN capacity, the pastoral services that have just disappeared. The current state isn't a surprise. It's the inevitable, predictable result of being short 50 billion a year.
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting. Let's look at the proposed plan. If we take the current UK spend, which is roughly 120 billion a year, and then we add the new recurring uplift, let's just call it 120 billion a year to keep it simple. What's the new total?
Well, the new total annual spend would land right in the middle of the source's projection, approximately 240 billion per year.
And as a share of GDP?
As a share of GDP, we're looking at a commitment of about 8.0%.
That is a fundamental leap. From 4.2% to 8.0% is nearly doubling the investment.
But hang on. If the top Nordic countries are in that 6.0% to 6.6% range, why does the UK's proposed number, 8.0%, have to be so much higher? Doesn't that look a bit like overspending?
That's a key question, and the sources are really clear on it. That 8.0% isn't the steady-state operating cost of a new system. It's the cost of a catch-up and rebuild effort.
Ah,
Think of it like a house that's been neglected for 40 years. The cost of the initial structural repair, the new roof, rewiring the electrics, replacing the heating, that pushes the immediate budget way higher than the eventual cost of just, running a clean, modern home.
Right, you're paying for all the deferred maintenance at once.
Exactly. This higher figure, it represents not just getting to operational parity paying teachers properly, smaller classes, but also that immediate massive capital injection needed to fix the crumbling buildings and rebuild the recruitment channels.
So once those deficits are fixed, the rate might settle down a bit. It might stabilize closer to, say, 7.0, 7.5%. But that initial burst of 8.0% is absolutely necessary. It puts the UK in the global top tier, but only because we started so far behind.
So the plan isn't unrealistic. It's paying the accumulated bill for decades of underinvestment.
Precisely. It's the real-world commitment shown by societies that prioritize education as their engine for the future.
Okay, that verifies the big number. But now from the critical part, the credibility check. We need to lift the hood and see if the plan for this money actually replicates what successful systems do. Does the money go to the right places? Let's start with people.
Absolutely. You have to start with teacher pay and professionalism. In top systems, teachers are treated like highly valued professionals. They're paid at or near parity with other comparable fields.
And they invest in them.
They invest heavily in continuous professional development CPD to make sure teachers are always learning. And they have stable career paths to keep talent from leaving.
And the plan mirrors this. It dedicates a huge chunk of that uplift, somewhere between £20 and £30 billion, specifically for teacher pay restoration and support staff uplift.
Which is designed to fix that collapsing recruitment pipeline.
Right. And that detail, that aligns directly with what the OECD recommends. It's not about a bonus. It's about restoring professional parity.
Exactly.
Next, let's look at something every listener, especially parents, can relate to: class sizes. Currently, the UK averages, 26 to 27 pupils per class. That is a huge constraint.
It is. It creates a logistical system, not a pedagogical one.
Yeah.
And if you look at the international comparison, the difference is just stark. Finland averages around 20 pupils. Norway is between 18 and 20. Sweden is typically 20 to 21.
And the plan's goal is to hit 20 pupils per class, a direct, measurable alignment. But let me challenge that for a second. If we're so far behind on spending and we have a teacher recruitment crisis, how realistic is it to suddenly find the staff to teach, an extra 6 or 7 classes per school? Don't you need to spend even more on salaries just to hire them?
That's where the investment logic connects. The initial immediate pay restoration is designed to do two things at once. First, stop the hemorrhage of existing talented teachers leaving.
Stop the bleeding.
Stop the bleeding. And second, make the profession attractive enough to bring a new generation into the training pipeline. The money for the salary uplift is the money for hiring the staff for 20 pupil classes. You can't do one without the other.
I see. So the pay rise is the recruitment strategy.
In essence, yes. The plan budgets for both simultaneously.
That makes sense. Okay, let's move on to the physical reality: buildings and maintenance.
This is where that massive capital upgrade figure comes into play. High-performing countries don't wait for things to break. They treat their school estates as critical national infrastructure.
A non-negotiable.
It's a non-negotiable. They spend 3 to 5% of the total estate value every year just on preventative maintenance. That ensures buildings are modern, well-ventilated, energy efficient, and they have rolling rebuild plans to prevent crises.
We've all seen the news about the RAC crisis. That's the reinforced autoclaved aerated concrete. It's the poster child for decades of deferred maintenance. A head teacher shouldn't have to worry if the roof is going to fall in.
Absolutely. Imagine being that head teacher, knowing parts of your building might just fail. That's the real-world result of treating maintenance as an optional extra.
So the plan's budget here is?
It's 12 to 14 billion pounds annually for maintenance and renewal, plus another 1 to 1.5 billion a year for future-proofing things like digital infrastructure and climate resilience. It's not an add-on, it's the cost of long-term sustainability.
Okay, finally, let's look at what's often seen as the soft stuff, but it's crucial: holistic care and enrichment. In the current system, these are always the first things to be cut.
But the best systems know that education is holistic. I mean, if a student is hungry or struggling with their mental health or has specific needs, they just can't learn. That's why successful nations invest so heavily in support. Robust SEN provision, that's special educational needs, early childhood development, proper pastoral and mental health teams, and enrichment, like arts, music, and sport.
And the plan commits huge dedicated funding here. If you group it all together, it sets aside nearly 40 billion pounds just for that care infrastructure.
40 billion.
That's SEN expansion, pastoral and well-being teams, plus enrichment funding. I mean, to give you a sense of scale, that funding bucket alone is roughly the size of the entire current defense budget.
It's a complete reversal of the austerity mindset. Instead of cutting support staff, the plan commits another 10 to 12 billion pound for curriculum, CPD, and early years. It's not experimental, it's the blueprint for systems that work.
So we've established the plan is credible against the Nordic model. Every major line item, teachers, classes, buildings, care, it all aligns with international best practice.
Yeah.
Let's check the final benchmark, and this might be the most powerful one. What does a premium education cost right here at home?
Yes, let's look at private schools.
What's the price tag?
This comparison is so clarifying because it gets rid of any international economic differences. Private day schools in the UK currently spend, on average, between £18,000 and £22,000 per pupil per year.
And they're operating the same economy with the same labor costs, same building costs?
Exactly. That is the cost of delivering a known high-quality product in the UK today.
So if you scale that up,
If you take that average cost, let's use £20,000 as the midpoint, and you scale it nationally for the 10 million pupils in the state system, the total annual spend required to deliver that private-level quality is somewhere between 180 billion and 220 billion a year.
and when we compare that domestic benchmark to the state model's total annual spend of £230 to $250 billion,
It's almost a perfect alignment.
it's right there. The difference is pretty minor, probably just swallowed up by the extra costs of running a huge national system.
Right. And the conclusion here is, I think, undeniable. The proposed funding level is perfectly aligned with what premium private schools already operate at. It proves the proposal relies on no magic savings and no unrealistic efficiencies. It just costs what it costs.
Okay, let's pull all these threads together. Let's summarize this credibility check. That recurring uplift, that number that seemed so wild at the start, £110 to $130 billion, is basically just what's needed to get the UK system to where high-performing nations already are.
And where our own premium domestic providers already operate.
Right, we're not aiming for perfection, we're just aiming for parity.
And that, I think, restores some critical perspective. The sources argue pretty forcefully that the real outlier isn't this proposal. It's the UK's current underfunding,
At 4.2% of GDP.
which is just structurally unsustainable.
We're operating below the OECD average with some of the biggest class sizes in Europe. We're actively neglecting school buildings, as the REC crisis showed everyone, and treating things like SEN and pastoral care as optional extras.
So, of course, the catch-up bill is huge. You've deferred essential investment for decades.
Precisely. So the numbers just restore the system to the international norm. High investment, small classes, properly paid teachers, safe modern buildings, and strong SEN and pastoral care. The sources conclude, there are no unicorns here.
Just accounting.
Thank you for sharing these sources. This has been a really comprehensive deep dive, and it clarifies why sometimes very large numbers are simply necessary numbers.
And here's the final provocative thought for you to consider, and it comes straight from the source material. The documents describe this final proposed model, the one that costs 8.0% of GDP, as just a functioning education system.
Just a functioning system.
So if that level of spend is simply what's required for a functioning system, one that serves its society and its economy, what are the implied inevitable consequences of operating, as the UK currently does, at the dramatically lower, chronically deficient rate of 4.2%? That's something worth mulling over.